Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm just outside enjoying the sunshine, breastfeeding my son. Today's topic is induced lactation. I was researching the history of breastfeeding, actually the history of wet nurses and milkmaids and that sort of thing, because I was kind of interested. And my goodness, all I can say is that's some pretty interesting history. I think it's interesting how throughout history most women, haven't really wanted to breastfeed their children. And that's why there were, milkmaids, milk nurses, wet nurses hired, especially by the elite and upper class, to take care of and to nurse these babies. What I also found out that was interesting is that back in, I guess you could call it the old days, babies were actually, if they weren't, anyway, these babies were tossed out for various reasons. Maybe the family had too many daughters, maybe they couldn't handle any more babies, and maybe they were wanting a son or whatever reasons, and maybe they had some health problems or whatever, and so they tossed them out into the rubble pile. And it said that sometimes the wealthy would hire people to go and get these babies, and they would hire a wet nurse to nurse these babies for about 3 years, and then once they were raised, they were used as like maids and servants in these wealthy households. Oh, sorry. And so, anyway, while I was reading that article, I also found out that they would hire these wet nurses and maids, and sometimes the wet nurses and maids had not had a baby, and that sometimes they would just put the baby to the breast and breastfeed the baby. And the action of the baby suckling at the breast would actually, over time, produce milk in a mother who had never given birth, who wasn't producing milk. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And I couldn't find a lot of information on that. Just a minute. My son wants a pecan. I'll be right back. Anyway, I couldn't find a lot of information about women back then, producing milk if they've never given birth. But what I did find information on was something called induced lactation. And a lot of mothers are doing this, particularly if they adopt a baby, perhaps. They want to produce breast milk. And I found some websites that actually showed how you could induce lactation if you've never given birth before, or if you have given birth but it's been a long time and your supply has dried up. Basically what they recommended was to use a breast pump. And they have this regimen where you use it like every hour for 15 minutes or so. And they have this plan, and over a long period of time you will actually start to produce milk, even if you've never given birth before. And there's actually a reason for this, is that suckling at the breast actually produces a hormone that goes to the pituitary gland and causes milk production. So you don't have to have given birth to produce milk. That's what I read, is that the suckling actually triggers that hormone to be released. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. And I've had some people ask, well, why do babies play with the other breasts and everything like that? And I think that very well could be because the baby is trying to stimulate the milk, just a natural evolutionary response, perhaps. And it's also entertaining for the baby. But yeah, that was just something interesting to look at. So there's lots of websites on induced lactation. Some take hormones to help induce lactation. So, and some, I think, just use the breast pump. But I think, it's like a rigorous process. It takes several months to do this, but some women have been successful at doing this. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on induced lactation? I thought that was some interesting information about the history of breastfeeding. That just fascinates me. Nursemaids and milkmaids were actually one of the oldest professions for women, like the first profession for women, and they were paid pretty well for it. Anyway, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe.